Many of you know who I am. From Muskogee. I've got a successful small business, a carpet cleaning business. Had that for 25 years. It's a family-run business. It's kind of the lifeblood of the 2nd District. You can go up and down from Kansas to Texas, and you've got small businesses all the way up and down. And that's what makes us unique. That makes us different than Tulsa and Oklahoma City. It's interesting that Tulsa and Oklahoma City would think that they're the only ones in the state. I've seen that on the state level as far as where resources go, but the 2nd District is important. It's important for families, it's important for our communities, and it's important for us to have a connection. This district is 26 counties. It's as different up north as it is down south. And I've traveled that whole distance, and I've met some really great people up and down the district. And I know Dwayne met those folks when he was on the trail as well. And there's some wonderful people that make up rural Oklahoma. And that's what makes us different than Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We know our neighbors. We know when our neighbors are gone. And we know if someone pulls into our neighbor's drive, whether they're supposed to be there. As a small businessman, I've signed both sides of the check. I think that's important for someone to be able to have that experience. And I've also signed my paycheck and had to hold that check until there was enough money for me to cash it. That's how small businesses run. Sometimes it's hand to mouth. Sometimes you have a successful month or a successful year. And that's what makes freedom of choice, what makes America great. For you to benefit from your own efforts, for you to work as hard as you want to work and benefit from that labor. So this race is about 2 individuals now. We whittled it down from 6 to 2, and it's for the Republicans to choose who they think is going to be the best prepared, best vetted candidate that's going to face the Democrat. You talked about the Democrats are not going to leave this seat alone. They're already talking about how they want to make sure that they retain the seat. They're going to work hard to do that. So that's why we've got to make sure we send someone who can beat the Democrat in the fall, in November. I've won 3 races in Muskogee. Muskogee, Fort Gibson, District 14, 72% registered Democrat district. Won it in 2006, 2008, and 2010 was unopposed. Never would have thought a Republican from Muskogee, that district, would have ever been unopposed. But it's because of the work I did. Even the Democrats learned to trust me. They may not agree with me on every issue. As far as that goes, there's Republicans that didn't agree with me on every issue. I'm going to give you a perfect example. I had a card that was mailed to me from a supporter, and she said, we don't agree on a lot of issues. And she said, I'm pro-choice. I think government ought to have a bigger role in providing help for everybody, and I'm not opposed to non-traditional marriage. But here's $50 because I believe in you, and I believe that you'll do a good job for me. We can have those conversations, but it's who are you going to send, and who are you going to send up there that you can trust to do what's right, what's constitutional. There's some ways that we can decide on how we're going to face the issues that we have. And I've kind of got a four-pronged test on how I'm going to try to look at every piece of legislation. Is it constitutional? First thing. Is it right? Look at it. Use your judgment. Is it right? Can we afford it? That might be the most important question to ask. Can we afford it? And then the last question would be, do we really need it? Just because it's constitutional may not mean it's the best thing, or we can afford it, or we need it. Because if you're like me, government's too big, it's in too many areas of our life, and it takes too much of our product, too much of our effort. And I can give you a good story. As a kid, I was raised out in the country. We had a dairy farm. My grandfather had a lot of property and had a lily pad pond. And I don't know how many people are in here. Some of you might have already heard this story, but I'd go across the pasture and I'd go fishing there. And my grandfather lived up on the hill, and he'd get in his truck and he'd drive down. And I was fishing one day and I caught about probably a 4-pound bass, 4 or 5-pound bass. I was pretty proud of myself. I probably had a little OK-02 and some minnows. And I heard him get in his truck, and he drove down through the pasture, came down through the gate, and pulled up to the pond. And he got out and said, "Well, son, what'd you catch?" Well, 12-year-old kid, I was pretty proud. I grabbed my little stringer, and I used to use the string with a little metal prod on the end of it. You've probably seen those. You stick it in the mud and keep your fish in there. So I grabbed that fish and I took it up to him, and he said, "Here, let me look at it." So he grabbed that fish, pulled out his big pocket knife, and he cut that fish in half. He took the tail, gave me the head, and said, "Here's your part." That's what government's doing to businesses out there. They're leaving business owners with the head because they're taking the tail with the meat in it. I'm tired of that. That's why I think we need to fix our tax system. We make it so it punishes those people that produce, and those people that produce actually create jobs. They actually create wealth, and they actually drive this economy. But what do? We want to drive them away. You talk about regulations that are hurting businesses as well. I don't know of a single business, whether it's a plumbing business, whether it's a carpet cleaning business, whether it's a bank, whether it's a law office, that aren't affected by regulations and rules passed down by bureaucrats. It's okay to complain about them, but have you ever done anything about them? I actually have on the state level. Passed legislation that actually puts in accountability, that bureaucrats can no longer just pass rules without the legislature voting on it. That's kind of a novel idea, to pass a rule that basically becomes a law and your elected officials have to vote on it. That's a novel idea. I think that's what we ought to do on the federal level. Congressman Langford has heard about that legislation, thinks it would probably be a good idea. You can count on me to try to push that on the federal level, because that's the only way we're going to get in between agencies controlling our lives. Obviously, the debt is huge. It's getting bigger every day. It's time that we learn to tell Washington no. Just tell them no. No more spending. Let's cut programs that aren't working. Senator Coburn has a report out there called Back in Black, where he's identified $9 trillion worth of waste, duplication, and fraud that could be cut right now. I've talked to congressmen, and I said, "Who's looking at it in Congress?" He's got it all laid out. I mean, it's a report that's about that thick. It's easily found. And I said, "Which congressman is taking a page out and doing something about it?" That congressman said, "Nobody." Nobody. All that effort to identify what many of our problems are, and no one's picking up the mantle. Senator Coburn says we don't need more ideas up there. We need people to put in place the good ones that are there. You can count on me to pick up the good ideas that are there and run with them. In my business, we do a lot of flood jobs where someone's pipe is busted and their house is flooded, and you walk in, and every room in this homeowner's house has got water in it. It never happens when the house is clean. It always happens when you come back from vacation and you just dumped all your stuff and you just went to bed. And you walk in, and this is the worst tragedy that these folks have ever seen, because they think, well, where do you start? Well, sometimes I have to scratch my head and say, okay, where am I going to start? Because if you're going to move stuff, you've got to move it to a dry spot. Well, you just have to pick a room. You just have to pick a room, unload it, get the wet stuff out, dry it out. That's like this report that Senator Coburn has. Let's just pick a page and start working on it. We can't have the status quo any longer. The status quo is going to bury the future of my kids and my potential grandkids, which there's actually a chance of that now because my middle son's going to get married. So Becky and I have always thought that we want to have grandkids while we're still young enough to enjoy them. I just turned 50 2 weeks ago. And some people a little older than me. Fortunately, when Dwayne was in, he was still the grandpa of the group by a couple of years. I guess I'm the grandpa of the group right now. But, you know, I celebrated 50 years and I shot a Barrett 50 caliber rifle for my birthday. Never know. I didn't know what to expect. Bob, have you shot one of those before? Okay.
No, they didn't. That's a relatively new thing.
Yeah, I didn't know.
I shot a 50 caliber machine gun, but not a Barrett.
Okay. Well, I'm sure that probably had a little bit of kick. I was a little apprehensive whenever I was going to pull the trigger to see what was going to happen. But, you know, it's time for us to pull the trigger on some things that we need to bring government back into line. And it's time for us to send folks up there who are willing to take on the challenges, who are prepared with their life skills that they can do the job from day one, and let's get this country back on track. I think I have those skills. If you want someone who's already fought for lower taxes, I've done that. If you want someone who stood in a contentious committee room when you had a pro-life bill, and you had a whole bunch of folks behind you with coat hangers that they painted red because they wanted to say this is the blood of back alley abortions that you're trying to bring. I've stood in the committee rooms whenever we had a simple bill that would allow someone to have their weapon, their pistol, in their vehicle, in a locked vehicle on a career tag. There were 3 rows of superintendents behind me who didn't want that to happen. So I've stood up for our Second Amendment rights. I've stood up for lower taxes. I stood up for life. I've stood up for traditional marriage. You know, all those things are being attacked by the current administration, and we've got to change it. The most important election that we have is for the president's office. The second, I think, is this Congressional District 2. The president, because we have got to change the direction that this country is going, or we're going to lose the very freedoms that it was founded on. So it's important for every Republican to be engaged. And then next, it's important for every Republican and Democrat to vote for the conservative candidate. And I think that's going to be me. I've proved that I can win in the 2nd District. I think that's something we have to make sure. The last time we didn't vet a candidate, we wound up with Barack Obama. I don't think we want to make that mistake again. I think he needs to go find another job, and we need to put the most qualified individual in the 2nd District. And I think it's me. So I appreciate your support. Just around the corner, it's been a long, hot summer, but it'll get hotter. Politics is a full contact sport. It takes a toll on your family. It takes a toll on your tires. It takes a toll on your shoes. I've yet to find we don't have a cobbler, I guess that's what they call them, a cobbler in Muskogee. I've got a pair of shoes I've got a hole in, and I can't wear yet because I've got to get them fixed and run through several sets of tires on numerous vehicles. But, you know, it's not about me. It's not about my business. It's not about how it's affecting me. It's about our country. It's about returning our country back to greatness, one district at a time. Oklahoma CD2 is a poor district, and I think it's because we are not connected. We're isolated. We're not working in concert, and I think we can return that. You know, I had a situation just this week. Had a constituent call me, and a friend of theirs, he was a Navy veteran. You know, he was in a nursing facility, getting care out at the VA, but he needed to have some rehab. And the nursing facility he was in Muskogee didn't offer that. Well, these folks had run out of places to call. They called me at home and said, hey, you know, this is the situation, can you help? Well, as a state rep, I know that sometimes you can start at the top and try to get somebody on it. So immediately I called Warren's office, Inhofe's office, and Coburn's office. I said, look, here's the guy's situation. He wanted to come up here to Claremore, to the facility up here. He was on a waiting list, but his health was failing quickly.